Isaiah 60. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the people. But the Lord will arise upon you, and his glory will be seen upon you. Nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes all around and see. They all gather together. They come to you. Your sons shall come from afar, and your daughters shall be carried on the hip. Then you shall see and be radiant. Your heart shall thrill and exult, because the abundance of the sea will be turned to you. The wealth of the nations shall come to you. A multitude of camels shall cover you, the young camels of Midian and Ephah, and all those from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and frankincense. They shall bring good news, the praises of the Lord. The flocks of Kedar shall be gathered to you. The rams of Nebaioth shall minister to you. They shall come with acceptance on my altar, and I will beautify my beautiful house. Who are these that fly like a cloud and like doves to their windows? Oh, that is just the first 8 verses of Isaiah chapter 60. And already the imagery, the poetry that we have read could fill at least 10 canvases. But what we're going to do today, and I apologize if there's a little bit of a glare on this, this is a print of an original that I did. I actually did several renditions of my interpretation of Isaiah 60. This is just a print, but as you can see, there's the murmuration. That is straight out of Isaiah 60, verse 8. Who are these that fly like a cloud and like doves to their windows? And then the fish in the sea, that's the abundance of the sea, shall be turned to you. There are several elements in this piece that are just beautiful symbols straight out of Isaiah chapter 60. The evergreen trees are mentioned, the sun, the moon. This little bit of geometry here is my interpretation of the birds flying to their windows. Just full of beauty and symbolism. And again, the poetry that is the Word of God. Did you know, and I may have mentioned this before in this course already, that a full 1/3 of the Scripture, 1/3, if not more, is poetry? The God of the universe is a poet, and that just excites me to no end. So we're going to get started on what for me is yet another Isaiah 60 piece. But interestingly, I want to do this particular piece in a circular form. I bought this. It's a wooden tray from Hobby Lobby. And they have a category in their wood section, the wood pile fun. This was $14.99, and I'm sure I paid 40% off of that. It already has a little hanger on the back, and I've got that marked so that my image won't get wonky to the left or to the right. I've got the center top clearly marked. I have the base gessoed with white gesso and ready to go. You will need some paint. I also wanted to do this particular project, all of it in inexpensive paint. Now I have not bragging, but I have a pretty large stash of golden paints, and those are the paints I typically use when I'm painting for gallery representation or shows or for my shop. But I wanted to do this piece in all inexpensive paint. Each of these paints are $4.99 or less. And just last week, my Hobby Lobby had 50% off of all of their Master's Touch brand of paint that was $4.99 and under. So I picked up a bunch for $2.50. Let's go ahead and go over the colors. I've got turquoise green, neutral gray, zinc white, ivory black. This is maybe, I may use it, may not. Dark titanium white, and an iridescent graphite. I also have a brown red that also has a touch of iridescence to it. Reason being is this is not a literal rendering of water and mountains. This is a very poetic interpretation of a beautiful passage of scripture. So I'm completely unafraid to use these iridescent colors. I already mentioned the fact that I have gessoed the substrate. You will want an array of paintbrushes and palette knives. You might want something to keep your lines straight, especially if you're going to work in the round like I am going to. It's going to be really important to level that horizon line. I've got some artist's tape to tape off the inside of the frame. Once again, I always try to remember to wear latex gloves when I paint. And then I picked a bunch of these up for free from my local Walmart. They're the Kilts Peel and Stick Paint Color Sample. Now, I don't know, they may charge for these by now, but on the day that I picked these up, they were free. I asked, I said, is there a charge for these? The guy said, no, just take them. So I took several. They're real handy. It says you can peel this sample and place the sample on the wall so that you could live with a color. I want to see how this will do as a palette. So it's Porpoise Gray, the Peel and Stick Paint Color Sample, and I'm just literally going to peel the back off and stick it to my craft paper here and use this as a palette for this piece. Be careful if you're working in the round on a round canvas to mark carefully your center top and then avoid the absolute center of the circle. I'm going to come just below center and mark off a level horizon line for the water. And now I can just use a pencil and erase it. If I don't like what I come up with, I will pencil in a mountain horizon. I think I want to come down from the left and the right, bring a mountain range down. Just make sure it's interesting. And then I'll have my sun probably right about here. All these marks will disappear under paint, and that's fine. But for now, I want to be sure that I compose this properly, and then there'll be a murmuration all around here. That will probably, I'll bring it over the sun and down over the moon. And then there'll be the fish down here below and a couple of those evergreen trees here and maybe one over here. And just looking at it right now, I like it. So we're going to get started. I'm going to lay out a little bit of the turquoise green and grab a brush. Which one? I'm gonna work small. Oh, wait. Time out, you guys. I cannot believe I almost forgot to tape the edges of this frame off. It wouldn't have been a tragedy if I'd forgotten. I would just, I would come in with some paint and fix it and just paint this frame. But hopefully I can keep it covered and not get too much paint on it. Okay, I have the frame taped off. Let's get into this turquoise green and get the water down. As simple as this. I believe over here somewhere I'm going to put a small pile of matte medium to help my color spread further, faster, and not use quite so much paint on this underpainting. All right, the next thing I want to do is have a wipe or two ready because I like to get a little bit of dripping action going on here. So I'm going to get my squirt bottle of water and just apply it to the paint and let that paint begin to run. Can you see it running? That's exactly what we want. Okay, I'm going to come in where it's pooling in the bottom and try to catch that. Okay. Get a paper towel as well. I don't know if you're noticing, but at this stage, I tend to work as quickly as I can because I want to tap into the part of my brain that is more intuitive, less analytical. And so the faster I work, if you can make yourself work as fast as you're comfortable with working, that's going to help you so much. I'm going to get this layer dry. While this is drying, I am going to lay out my iridescent brown red and get started on the sky. Another medium-sized brush. This is a filbert. Since I'm working in the round, I think that will help a lot getting up into the corners of the canvas. Trying to decide if I want to get into that matte medium yet. I think not quite yet. Dip into it now. Once I feel the paint start to kind of catch and be dry on the substrate, that's when I'll go into the matte medium just to get a little help. I'm going to bring the sky down to the mountain range, but not too far past it, just because I want to be able to still see my marks under the paint. As you can see, I'm letting the paint just skip onto the canvas. I'm not laying down a really thick layer at this point. Whenever you're working with acrylics, make sure you get your brush straight into the water, otherwise you will ruin a ton of brushes. Now I'm going to put down, if you can see this palette, let me make sure you can see the palette. Yes, I'm going to lay down a line of this iridescent graphite. because I want to come in with my palette knife and just touch it into the paint and then bring it to my canvas and touch it onto the canvas. When I do a mountain range in acrylics, I like for the mountains usually to have a linear appearance to them. Don't overthink this, just get the paint down. Don't even try to make your lines necessarily touch perfectly. You're just suggesting your mountain range here. Nothing Rembrandt. Don't think Leonardo da Vinci. Don't think Michelangelo. Just think palette knife, angular lines. Now I'm taking the small edge of the palette knife. Make sure you utilize both of these God-given sides to a palette knife. You've got a short side and you have a long side. Let's utilize the short side right there and pretty much the long side everywhere else. And then I'm gonna bring the paint down slightly. Can you see what I'm doing? It's just a small action. That will create a nice shadow effect in your mountains. Now taking that small side and bringing some of the paint down here in the corner, and then clean that palette knife off. Next, I want to come in with an offset palette knife and lay down some neutral gray. And work a little bit more on these mountains. Whoops. I want the mountains to have a texture that is different from the water and the sky. So I'm going to work my paint in a little more thickly and a little differently here. I'm going to need quite a bit more than that. It is hard for me to talk to you and paint at the same time, so I might do a couple of things that don't make sense, but it's only because the right side of my brain wants really badly to just go wild and free, and I can't let it, because I need to explain to you what I'm doing. This is not hard. You're just taking this neutral gray paint onto a palette knife and you're laying in the mountains with just a movement and a texture that pleases your eye. And you'll keep going till you're happy with it. I'm going to get some of this paint off here so that I can work it in. There we go. Another thing that may drive you crazy, and I apologize in advance, is the fact that I can be ambidextrous, especially if I'm tapping into that right side of my brain. I forget whether I'm right-handed or left, and I will switch off and I don't even realize I'm doing it. I think that probably helps for the angle of the camera that is directly overhead right now. I actually think that could possibly be kind of helpful. But for the people that have been learning technique from me, both online and in person, it does make them a little crazy, but I can't help it. It's just how I roll. That is never going to change. You'll notice I'm not being too picky about the water line here. It's okay if some of the paint gets down below it, because there's going to be some mirroring. This is our ocean, lake, whatever. This is our body of water. Above it are the mountains, above it the sky. All right, let's get the excess paint off of this palette knife. Set it off to the side. I think what I'm going to do now is get all of this a little drier than it is right now. Next, I want to come in with the long edge of the palette knife. I'm going to get into some of the iridescent graphite, and I want to commit to that water line. I also want to be very careful to keep it straight. I'm looking for my triangle. I want to be careful as I can to keep it straight. So I'm going to come in with the edge of the palette knife loaded with that iridescent graphite and just lay down the water line. When I'm done here, I'm going to hold up the whole canvas and carefully look at it to see if the line that I've laid down, if it is even. If it creates a level water horizon when this is hanging on a wall. But I've got to work quickly because I also want to come in and put some water on this and get some of that dark line to run. Yes. Holding it up, studying it, that looks straight to me. I want my really small squirt bottle for this. And I hope you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to apply that to the edge of the water line I created just now. Try to get some of that paint to move. Since it's not moving the way I hoped, I'm going to help it with a fan brush. And I'm going to tilt the canvas just slightly and bring some of this down into the water. Just bringing that iridescent graphite down into my emerald green paint. I don't want to overdo this, but at the same time, it's a necessary step. And I'm going to dry this. Next, I'm going to lay out a little bit of titanium white and come in with the small side of my palette knife and lay down a few highlights on the tops of these mountains. I don't necessarily want to suggest snow. That's not the look I'm after. I just want to give some variety. I don't want this mountain range to just be all neutral gray. And you could choose any color for your mountain range. You could choose a Payne's gray. You could even do a shade of olive green. I just really like this neutral gray. For some reason, to my eye, the color of the sky, which is fanciful, not a blue sky. Color of the water, fanciful, not actually the color of water. So in keeping with that, I want the mountain range to be, you know, not exactly the color that an actual mountain range would be. This is the poetic interpretation. Now I'm just going to let my palette knife skip around some of the ridges that were left by the neutral gray paint. You'll remember we applied it with a palette knife because we wanted the texture. We didn't want the brush texture of the sky or the water. We wanted that palette knife texture, and now's when that begins to pay off, because we're going to let the titanium white, and I'll go in now with the long side of the palette knife. We're going to let it skip around. Let's get some more right about there. I'm going to go in with my fingers here or there. Okay, I'm going to dry this layer. I don't want to get too far into the mountain range because my next step, I want to take some zinc white. Let me find it over here. And work a little more on the sky. The sky, we just laid down that iridescent brown red. We let the paintbrush skip around on that gesso. We've left, you can see a lot of the canvas through the paint, which is what I want. Now I want to go in with zinc white, which is one of my favorite shades of paint. If you love transparency as much as I do, make sure you have a lot of zinc white available to you. I'm just going to put some on my gloved hand and begin to work it into the sky. Zinc white is going to let you see whatever color is beneath it. Then if I accidentally get it too far down into the mountain range, I can still go in with a palette knife and reestablish those lines. But that's why I didn't want to get too far into this process here in the center, because I knew I have quite a bit more work to do both on the sky and the water. So I'm bouncing back and forth between these three levels of the painting. Kind of while one dries, I'll work on another. All right, I think now I want to get in here with a paintbrush again and get some of the brown red. Work some more on the sky. It'll be a back and forth between the brown red and the zinc white. I think I want the edges of this substrate, I want the edges to be a darker brown red, and then it can get more and more transparent as it comes down to the top of the mountain. So I'm going to lay that brown red up in the very top of the circle. I'm going to get into my matte medium here. Let's get some finger work going, some finger painting. And some zinc white. Making sure that any cloud work that I have going on just seems to go right off the edge of the canvas. At this point, I want to come in with a very soft hake brush and just push around these pigments in the sky. Soften some things. Let them meet the mountain range. This will give this whole area up in here a real beautiful misty effect. This brush is very, very soft, so it is my go-to when I want this effect. Okay, a little more zinc white, just because I'm wanting to knock back the brown red just a little. I still want it, but I don't want it to be quite so dark. Okay, coming in with the soft brush again. I'm taking this brush and I'm making almost an X motion diagonally from the top down towards the left, from the top down towards the right, just softening as I go along. Okay, I'm going to get this brush in the water, and now think about my C again. I know I'm going to need more pigment down here, so I'm going to come in with a larger brush and get into my emerald green once again and lay some pigment, trying to keep my brush strokes working from the top down. And then come in with the fan brush again and just work across. Mimicking the effect of just the way water moves, the way water seems to hover, especially if it's just pooled, if it's kind of still water. It's not necessarily moving to the left or moving to the right, but yet there is movement. So you mimic that with your paint. You go in and do these up and down paint strokes with your brush, and then come in right behind. Let's see, I just realized I'm talking, so I'm not thinking. I want to do the same thing from the bottom up. I don't want to forget this little part of the circle. All right, I'm going to wet this down slightly, not too much. And then come in with the fan brush and move from left to right. All right, because of where I'm having to hold my line of sight to stay out of the camera range, it's hard for me to see what's going on here in the corners. So I'm gonna go in with some paint on my finger here and make sure that these edges are well tended. There's a little piece of tape right there that's trying to make me crazy. And then I'll have to remember to do the same thing with the neutral gray of the mountains and the brown red of the sky. So finding my gray, I'm going to get just the slightest little bit onto my finger and take care of this corner here. That edge looks pretty good. Now I'm going to let this dry. Next step is to come in with some willow into the very tops of the mountains here. There are places where the color that is the sky isn't quite meeting the mountain range. You can see the canvas behind the paint. The reason why I did not worry about that is I knew I would be coming in at this stage and raising the level of the mountain just a little bit so that this, where the paint has skipped between the sky and the mountain, when I raise the line of the mountain just ever so slightly and I come in with charcoal, that is compensated for, and it actually leaves a really nice effect of kind of a halo or a highlight at the top of the mountain that I like, because your eye is always going to be drawn to the area of greatest contrast. So in this painting, the area of greatest contrast, I want it to be just between the sky and the mountain range, and between the sky and that murmuration of birds. So here we go. Some of the paint is still slightly wet, not a problem. Just reestablishing a high contrast line right there. And then again, same thing here between the mountains and the water. Let's reestablish a horizon line that not as high contrast as we did up here, but to make sure that it's well established. Don't worry about it being perfect at this point. As long as earlier when you laid down the waterline with the palette knife, as long as you made sure that was level, at this point, if you follow that line that you know is there already, you'll be okay. If you don't deviate too much above or too much below, you can play around in here and create some interest in what is a landmass that is meeting the water. I'm going to come up here into the mountains again. Now I'm going to get in into this mountain range, which in a way that's a lot of artists do this, but it is very much my hand, is just to twist and turn whatever tool I'm using. If it's ink, pencil, graphite, willow, I like to tangle my lines, make them a little unruly, lose the control willingly right here. Next, I'm going to pick up the palette knife and establish the trunks of our evergreen trees. For sure, I want to put in an odd amount. You know, you never want to put in an even amount. So I'm going to put a little guy right here. I'm just going to touch that palette knife to the canvas and let it be. Let it be, dear Lord. And then you want one of your evergreen trees to be a little crooked, and you want it to up into the sky in this horizon line here. So I'm going to put a bigger guy right there and let him pop up into the sky so that there is some contrast, something for your eye to be drawn to. And then I'll put, let me use the small side of the palette knife, and let's put in a little short, stumpy little baby evergreens here. They don't have to be perfectly clear. You can see I'm not at all thinking too much about this. So I've got 5 now, so let's see. I think what I'm going to do is suggest one more over here, a small one. And then one right about, it's really important where this last one goes, so I've got to think about it for a second. Okay, a little bit crooked going off to the left right here. And then it's equally as important if you establish a tree to make sure that there is very obviously the soil, the ground beneath the tree. Something that tree is coming up out of. Okay, I'm going to pick up a small brush, and I'm going to wet this brush a little bit. I don't want my paint to be too thick. I don't want it to be too thin, but just a barely dampened brush getting into my iridescent graphite. I'm going to start at the top and begin to create the branches of my evergreen. And this is going to become something that is so unique to your hand. Do not try to paint your evergreens exactly the way you see me paint mine. Just get in there and let your hand do what your hand wants to do, keeping in mind that the branches of an evergreen go in a spiral sequence around an evergreen tree. I could get into the science of it, the Fibonacci sequence. It's just a beautiful, to me, proof of God's glory in creation. All creation speaks of who God is. So you just want to let your paintbrush find its way back and forth, building these branches as it goes, letting each one get a little longer. but by no means are you keeping these perfect. In fact, over here, I may leave a big gap. You know, perhaps something happened, and so I'll come up a little bit. Where these branches have a downward direction, I may take one branch right here and let it come up first and then down. And then leave a gap on the left side of that tree. Trees are wildly imperfect, like people. Each one is completely different from the one beside it, even though it's the exact same tree. It's the nature of a tree. So, if you love trees as much as I do, grab that metaphor right there. You cannot mess up a tree. The only way you can mess up a tree is to try to make it perfect. If you go in with the mindset of this cannot be perfect, you'll make a great tree. Almost every time. I want to go in and make the bottom of the trunk of this one a little more substantial. And then same thing with the smaller ones. Back and forth, working that brush. First one direction, then another. Creating contrast. You'll want to work your evergreen trees in silhouette to whatever's behind them. Whatever color that you chose for your mountain, you're going to want to silhouette your evergreen. If you chose a lighter tone, for example, if you chose more of a literal rendering and you chose a lighter green, you may want to come in with your evergreen and make them a dark titanium white, a dirty white. The point being, these are meant to be sheer contrast to the mountain behind them. Now I'm working on the smallest. You'll do the same thing all the way across with each one of your evergreen trees. I'm going to grab the offset palette knife and load it with just a little bit of the iridescent graphite, and I want to come down into this right hand corner where I have several trees and create a little bit of shadowing down into the water. I'm going to lay the pigment down and scratch that into the water. And come in with that same little fan brush, if I can find it. I don't want it too wet. I just pulled it out of the water. And work that in. I'm going to use my big piece of willow and do the same. Get some shadow action going. And then smudge that around. Let's see, let me get my tiny willow. Make sure the edges are well tended. A sure sign of a rookie artist is that her edges are not well thought out or well tended. Even though I am a rookie, I don't want to make rookie mistakes. So I'm going to get this corner right here at the edge and give it some thought, give it some love. Same thing with the opposite side. Trying so hard to keep my face back, to keep my hair and my head out of your way. Makes the job a little bit hard. I'm not complaining. Okay, let's bring some more willow or charcoal across. Get the contrast really looking good. Okay, when I pick this up and study it, I want to give a little more attention, not too much more, but a little more attention to the water that's down below. Now, our school of fish, the murmuration of fish, if you will, is going to be happening over this water, but I want there to be more of a high contrast right through here as those fish come up over it, and I want to give this bottom part a little more attention. So, what to do? I'll take this wet brush, get into my turquoise green, and work some more paint in, back and forth. Get some matte medium to help move pigment. I'm going to let some of that matte medium keep its texture on the board because, you know, this is water. Ripples in water would be a really good thing, right? Now I'm going to wet the surface over here and come in with a little bit of my iridescent graphite. Working in my reflections. And then taking my fan brush and blending them out. Now I've got to hold this up and look at it and decide if I'm happy with it. For the sake of time, I am going to be happy with it. Now I've got to take a heat tool to this and get it dry.